For thousands of years, we've accepted a story repeated in every textbook, museum, and tour guide that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built by Pharaoh Khufu as a grand tomb. According to this familiar tale, tens of thousands of laborers carved and hauled massive stones using copper tools, wooden sleds, and sheer human determination, completing one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world in just 2 decades. It's a story of brilliance, ambition, and national pride. And yet, what if none of it was ever actually proven? What if this version of history was not a conclusion, but a convenient assumption? Beneath the surface of this legendary monument lies a truth few dare to explore, a story not of tombs and kings, but of technologies that shouldn't exist, construction methods no one can replicate, and sealed chambers that remain untouched, deliberately so. For centuries, clues have been quietly ignored, research suppressed, and questions left unanswered. Because once you begin to investigate who really built the pyramids, you don't just challenge a historical detail, you threaten to unravel the entire foundation of what we believe about our ancient past. If the Great Pyramid wasn't built using the tools and techniques we've long accepted, if it wasn't constructed by Khufu's workers in the 26th century BCE with simple ropes and copper chisels, then we've misunderstood not just the monument, but human history itself. It would mean that a civilization existed with architectural knowledge, astronomical insight, and technological capabilities far beyond anything credited to the ancient Egyptians. And if that civilization came before them, it would rewrite the origin story of humanity. This isn't just a theoretical puzzle. It's a challenge to academic authority, to cultural identity, to everything we think we know about the rise of civilization. So why are so many discoveries locked behind sealed doors? Why are legitimate researchers denied access to hidden chambers, or their work dismissed without proper review? Is this secrecy truly about protecting Egypt's heritage, or is it about protecting a story that can no longer withstand scrutiny? If one of the world's most iconic monuments hides a deeper truth, what else have we been wrong about? And what happens when the evidence no longer supports the story, but those in power refuse to change it? We've all heard the official story. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the most iconic symbol of ancient Egypt, was constructed around 2550 BCE by order of Pharaoh Khufu. This colossus, made of over 2 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing several tons, was supposedly built in just 2 decades using rudimentary tools, copper chisels, sledges, and manpower. No wheels, no steel, no machines. Just human effort, sand, rope, and wooden rollers. It's a tale so often repeated that few stop to question it. But when you examine this narrative closely, the foundation begins to crack. Let's begin with the supposed evidence linking Khufu to the pyramid. One would expect that the most massive architectural feat of its time, a monument visible from space, would come with a trove of records. Yet, there is a startling absence of any inscriptions inside the pyramid declaring Khufu as the builder. This silence is deafening. Ancient Egyptians were prolific chroniclers, leaving hieroglyphic records on tombs, walls, scrolls, and monuments. Every significant event, from battles to religious ceremonies, was recorded with meticulous detail. Pharaohs especially ensured their names and deeds were immortalized. But in the case of the Great Pyramid, there is no elaborate dedication, no celebration of its creator, no depiction of the pharaoh commanding its construction. Instead, the attribution to Khufu hinges on a single piece of contested graffiti, a red ochre mark found in a hidden chamber above the king's chamber. Not only was this discovered after centuries of exploration, but its authenticity has been questioned by multiple scholars. Could this single faint scrawl truly be the only evidence tying the world's most enigmatic monument to a pharaoh? Next, consider the tomb theory itself. According to Egyptologists, The pyramid was built as Khufu's eternal resting place. But this tomb, if we can even call it that, is unlike any other found in Egypt. Traditional tombs are filled with artifacts, golden masks, canopic jars, richly decorated sarcophagi, texts from the Book of the Dead, and personal belongings meant to guide the pharaoh into the afterlife. The Great Pyramid contains none of these. There are no inscriptions inside the so-called burial chamber. No treasure, no hieroglyphs, no sarcophagus lid, no body. The chamber is cold, dark, and bare. An empty granite box sits at its center, offering no clear evidence of its purpose. If this was truly Khufu's tomb, why does it so completely deviate from the cultural practices of his time? Supporters of the mainstream theory point to the pyramid's surrounding complex as validation, the nearby smaller pyramids, causeways, and temples. But these structures themselves do not confirm Khufu as the architect. They demonstrate ritual landscape, yes, but not necessarily a construction timeline. In fact, the more we analyze the structural details of the pyramid, the more it seems out of place, not just in size, but in method. Let's talk about logistics. Building a structure that stands over 480 feet tall and aligns with true north to within 1/20th of a degree is an engineering feat even today. The base of the pyramid is level to within less than an inch, across an area the size of 5 football fields. The internal shafts and chambers are perfectly aligned, with some granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons, positioned over 100 feet in the air. How did untrained laborers, without pulleys or cranes, lift and place these megalithic stones? How did they transport them from quarries located hundreds of miles away? And then there's the problem of time. Building the pyramid in just 20 years, as Egyptologists claim, would require placing one block every 2.5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 2 decades straight. This includes the time to quarry, transport, truss, align, and place each stone, all without modern machinery. This timeline has been mathematically challenged by engineers, architects, and logistical experts alike, who find it implausible at best, impossible at worst, not even if we entertain the idea that thousands of workers or slaves, as older theories claimed, built the pyramid. We must question how they managed such precision. Copper tools, which are softer than granite, would dull almost immediately. Archaeological experiments have shown that trying to carve or shape granite using copper chisels is not just slow, it's almost entirely ineffective. Replications using period-accurate methods have failed to produce similar results. And yet, inside the pyramid, we find cuts and boreholes that would require sustained pressure, uniform speed, and tool hardness far beyond what copper provides. Critics of alternative theories often say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But shouldn't the same be said for the mainstream narrative, claiming that a civilization with no steel, no wheels, and no known measuring devices managed to create a structure whose design still challenges modern technology? That is an extraordinary claim. And it comes with very little verifiable evidence. There is also the matter of astronomical alignment. The Great Pyramid is not placed arbitrarily. Its sides are aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, and some believe it's internal. Geometry reflects celestial knowledge, including the angles and passageways that point directly to stars such as Orion and Sirius. If this monument was merely a tomb, why was it constructed with such cosmic precision? All of this raises a simple but uncomfortable possibility. The story we've been told is incomplete, or worse, inaccurate. The absence of direct evidence, the engineering impossibilities, the failure to explain the monument's full sophistication, and the rigid defense of the traditional timeline suggest that we may be clinging to a narrative that no longer fits. The facts. It doesn't mean we have all the answers, but it does mean we should keep asking better questions. Because when the official story begins to fall apart under scrutiny, what we're left with isn't a void, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to rediscover something far older, far more complex, and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. For centuries, scholars have marveled at the sheer scale and sophistication of the Great Pyramid. It's not just its size, though. At over 480 feet tall and weighing approximately 6 million tons, its enormity is undeniable. What continues to baffle modern engineers and architects is how such a massive, mathematically precise structure could have been built using only the crude tools available in the Bronze Age. Because when we strip away the familiar myth of laborers, with ropes and sleds, we're left with a construction project that defies everything we know about ancient capabilities. Let's start with the materials. The pyramid is composed primarily of limestone, but its most critical components, like the king's chamber, are made of granite, some of the hardest stone on Earth. Many of these granite blocks weigh between 50 to 80 tons and were transported from quarries in Aswan, over 500 miles to the south. No cranes, no industrial rigs, no iron tools. Historians suggest that these stones were floated on the Nile and dragged by manpower across the desert sands. But how were these blocks, some the size of buses, moved across uneven terrain, then lifted hundreds of feet into the air and slotted into place with millimeter precision? Even today, transporting and placing such massive stones would require specialized equipment, hydraulic lifts, steel frameworks, laser measurement systems. In the 21st century, architects rely on cranes that cost millions of dollars to achieve anything close to this scale and precision. Yet we are expected to believe that ancient builders using wooden rollers and copper chisels not only moved these stones, but positioned them so tightly that you can't fit a razor blade between them. The internal layout of the pyramid is another enigma. The Grand Gallery, a soaring, sloped passage with a corbelled ceiling nearly 30 feet high, was constructed with flawless symmetry. The ceiling stones are balanced with such delicate counterweight that some have compared it to modern bridge engineering. Then there's the alignment. The pyramid is oriented to true north with astonishing accuracy, within 1/20th of a degree. This surpasses even some modern buildings. How, without a compass or GPS, did Bronze Age architects determine such an exact cardinal orientation? Ancient Egyptian builders supposedly relied on the stars, yet this explanation does little to clarify the precision we see in the structure's foundation. And it's not just the outer dimensions. The internal shafts, narrow tunnels running from the king's and queen's chambers, are angled precisely to point at specific stars in Orion's belt and other significant celestial bodies. These alignments only make sense if the builders had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, knowledge historians insist they didn't possess at that time. One of the most perplexing details comes from the granite blocks inside the king's chamber. These stones display signs of advanced machining, not the rough hammer marks one might expect from copper tools, but smooth boreholes and linear cuts. Engineer Christopher Dunn, who studied these blocks extensively, identified spiral drill marks and polished flat surfaces consistent with high-speed rotary tools. According to Dunn, the evidence suggests the use of precision machinery, something akin to lathes or drill presses, not Stone Age pounding. Attempts to replicate these cuts using period-appropriate tools have failed miserably. Copper chisels bend or break almost immediately against granite. Even with modern hand tools, matching the precision observed in the pyramid has proven nearly impossible. Researchers using diamond-tipped equipment have reported that the tolerances inside the pyramid surpass what we typically see in industrial manufacturing today. Then there's the mystery of the pyramid's light or lack thereof. To build the intricate network of corridors and chambers deep within the structure, workers would have needed a consistent, portable light source. Yet no traces of soot or smoke residue have been found on the ceilings or walls. No torches, no oil lamps, no blackened stone. Theories range from the use of polished copper mirrors, reflecting sunlight, to some form of unknown lighting, perhaps even chemical or electrical in nature. Whatever the case, the absence of burn marks raises another question. How did they see in total darkness, 100 feet beneath millions of tons of stone? Each of these puzzles could perhaps be explained away individually, but together they paint a picture that is difficult to ignore. We're looking at a project so immense, so intricate, and so precise that it seems to exist outside the capabilities of the civilization we credit with building it. This isn't to say the ancient Egyptians were not brilliant. They were. Their architectural achievements are remarkable. But the Great Pyramid stands alone, both in scale and mystery. The deeper we examine its construction, the more it begins to resemble an outlier, a legacy monument, rather than a product of its time. One that may have been inherited, repurposed, or built with knowledge lost to history. If that's the case, the implications are staggering. It suggests the presence of an earlier, more technologically advanced civilization, one capable of feats we still struggle to explain, that either directly constructed or influenced the building of the Great Pyramid. Mainstream scholars often wave off these questions as fringe speculation. But science is built on evidence, not tradition. And when the physical facts, the tolerances, alignments, and material logistics contradict the accepted narrative, we are obligated to ask, are we truly honoring the past, or are we just repeating a myth that no longer holds up under scrutiny? The answers may not be easy, but they are hidden in the stone, waiting patiently to be revealed. For centuries, the mystery of the Great Pyramid seemed limited to its colossal size, its cryptic design, and the absence of the pharaoh it was supposedly built to honor. But then came a discovery that shifted the focus underground into the pyramid itself, where new layers of secrecy were found not in texts or ruins, but behind sealed doors that no one is allowed to open. It's here, in the hidden shafts and unexplored chambers, that the real enigma deepens. Because what lies inside these spaces has never been revealed, not to the public, not to researchers, and perhaps not even to those in charge. In the early 1990s, a German robotics engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink devised a small crawler robot to explore narrow tunnels branching out from the Queen's chamber, passageways too small for a human to enter. At the time, most Egyptologists believed these shafts were purely symbolic, spiritual corridors leading to the heavens. But what Gantenbrink's robot found was something completely unexpected. A flat limestone door at the end of one of the shafts, perfectly sealed, with two polished copper handles embedded into the stone. This was not a rough, accidental blockage. It was a manufactured door, a deliberate seal, and it changed everything. This door, now famously known as Gantenbrink's door, instantly became one of the most intriguing discoveries in modern Egyptology. Metal fittings had never been found in such a context before, and their very presence raised questions about whether these shafts were more than ceremonial. Were they functional? And more importantly, what were they hiding? Instead of investigating further, Egyptian authorities under Dr. Zahi Hawass abruptly halted Gantenbrink's access and removed him from the project. For nearly a decade, the door remained untouched. No further progress was made. No additional exploration permitted. It wasn't until 2002 that a new team, backed by National Geographic, was allowed to revisit the shaft, and even then, under heavy control and strict limitations. With great public anticipation, a small hole was drilled through the door to peer inside using a fiber optic camera. What they saw shocked everyone. Another sealed limestone slab, a second door, only a short distance behind the first. This second barrier, entirely unexpected, meant that whatever lay behind it had been intentionally double sealed. But the mystery only deepened, because even after this breakthrough, no further attempts were made to breach that second door. To this day, over 2 decades later, it remains closed, unexplored, unexamined, no further data released. Why? Some claim it's about preservation, that opening such chambers risks damaging ancient architecture. But that explanation doesn't sit well with many researchers. This isn't a tomb filled with fragile murals or delicate artifacts. These are sealed granite-lined shafts, blocked by manufactured slabs. What harm would a fiber optic camera cause? If the goal is discovery and understanding, why refuse to look inside? And it wasn't the only discovery of its kind. In 2017, a team of international researchers using radiography, an advanced form of cosmic ray scanning that detects empty spaces behind dense matter, made another staggering discovery. Their scans revealed a massive hidden void located directly above the Grand Gallery, a space nearly 100 feet long and 30 feet high. It is the largest internal chamber discovered in the pyramid since the 19th century. But here's the twist. There is no known entrance to this space, and no one has been allowed to explore it. This was not fringe speculation. It was a peer-reviewed, data-backed study published in the journal Nature. The scientific community expected a wave of enthusiasm, yet what followed was silence. Egyptian authorities downplayed the results. No formal expedition was authorized, and once again, access was denied. This behavior has become a pattern. When exploration edges too close to rewriting accepted history, the door is closed, sometimes literally. When the data challenges the traditional narrative, investigations stall. And when independent researchers ask questions, they're dismissed or labeled as pseudoscientists. But what if they're not wrong? What if they're just asking the questions mainstream archaeology refuses to face? Some of the world's leading engineers have publicly stated their willingness to provide safe, non-invasive tools to investigate these spaces. Tiny drones, advanced scanning devices, fiber optic probes, all designed to explore without risk of damage. But time and again, permissions are denied or indefinitely delayed. So we're left to wonder, what lies behind these walls that must be kept hidden? It's one thing to protect historical sites from looters or careless intrusions. It's another to obstruct scientific curiosity when the tools exist to explore without harm. And when it happens repeatedly, to sealed chambers, to sealed shafts, to sealed ideas, the impression it leaves is not one of caution, but control. Asterisk. This secrecy, intentional or not, only fuels the mystery. What if behind those doors lies physical evidence that challenges everything we've assumed? Inscriptions in an unknown language, remnants of forgotten tools, or structures unlike anything documented in Egyptian history. What if the true purpose of the pyramid, its builders, its function, its origin, is hidden inside those voids? It's not far-fetched. We already know that the Great Pyramid is unlike any other. We've seen its unmatched precision, its astronomical alignment, its engineering anomalies. Is it really so hard to believe that the most compelling proof of its real origin might still be buried in its sealed heart? Until those doors are opened, we won't know. But the refusal to even look is a choice. A choice that says some truths are too dangerous to confront. Or worse, that they were never meant to be found. At the center of almost every modern controversy surrounding ancient Egypt, from sealed chambers to suppressed research, stands one man, Dr. Zahi Hawass. To the world, he is the charismatic face of Egyptian archaeology. He's been featured in documentaries, interviewed by major networks, and has dedicated his life to preserving Egypt's historical legacy. But behind that public persona lies a far more complicated figure, one whose grip on Egypt's ancient past has, for decades, determined not just what the world sees, but what it is allowed to question. Dr. Hawass has held some of the most powerful roles in Egypt's antiquities system, including Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities and later Minister of Antiquities. With these positions came enormous influence, not only over excavation permits and site access, but also over which research was considered legitimate, which findings were announced, and which theories were permitted to enter academic discussion. In many ways, he has functioned not just as a guardian of Egypt's past, but as its ultimate gatekeeper. And that role raises troubling concerns. To be clear, no one denies Hawass's contributions to public awareness of ancient Egypt. He has tirelessly promoted Egyptian heritage, fought to retrieve stolen artifacts, and played a pivotal role in protecting ancient sites from modern encroachment. But for many researchers, especially those outside Egypt's official circles, he represents something else entirely. A rigid system that silences dissent, buries uncomfortable discoveries, and protects an official narrative, even when that narrative no longer aligns with the evidence. Take the case of Rudolf Gantenbrink, a German engineer who discovered the sealed shaft in the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. After his robot revealed the now famous Gantenbrink's door, excitement in the global archaeological community surged. But instead of being praised for his groundbreaking work, Gantenbrink was abruptly removed from the project. It was Dr. Hawass, then in charge of Egypt's antiquities, who shut down the investigation. For nearly a decade, no one was allowed to touch the shaft again. No explanations were offered. No public reports were released. The door remained closed, both literally and bureaucratically. This wasn't an isolated incident. Multiple independent researchers, from engineers to geologists to historians, have reported similar encounters. Their requests for permits, even when backed by peer-reviewed credentials and funding, were delayed, denied, or ignored. Proposals to re-examine controversial sites, redate suspicious structures, or test alternative theories were often dismissed out of hand. And again, these roadblocks often trace back to Dr. Hawass or the institutions he controlled. Supporters argue that this strict oversight is necessary, that without someone guarding the gates, Egypt's heritage could fall prey to sensationalism, pseudoscience, or looting. But critics counter with an uncomfortable question. When does protection become suppression? It's worth examining what kinds of ideas provoke the strongest resistance. Time and again, it is not fringe fantasies or outlandish alien theories that get blocked. It's carefully researched proposals that suggest the history of ancient Egypt may stretch back far further than mainstream timelines allow. It's geological analysis that challenges the dating of the Sphinx. It's architectural evidence that points to unknown engineering capabilities. It's astronomical alignments that imply a deeper, more ancient understanding of the cosmos. These are not wild conspiracies. These are testable, documentable claims made by respected scholars, yet they are treated with hostility. Researchers like Robert Bauval, Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, and Christopher Dunn have all faced public ridicule, media blackouts, or formal obstruction when presenting evidence that contradicts the conventional view. In interviews and debates, Hawass has been known to walk off stage, shout down opponents, or simply refuse to engage, behavior unbefitting of scientific discourse. Why this level of resistance? Why such a visceral reaction to new data? The answer may lie not just in science, but in politics, identity, and power. The narrative of ancient Egypt is not just an academic subject. It is a matter of national pride. For modern Egypt, the pyramids are more than tourist attractions. They are symbols of cultural continuity, proof of a great and glorious past. To suggest that these monuments might have been built by a pre-Egyptian civilization or influenced by lost knowledge from a forgotten era risks challenging not just history books, but national identity. Moreover, institutional careers, Academic reputations and museum exhibits are all built on the existing timeline. Changing that timeline would mean rewriting curricula, revising databases, and admitting that decades of scholarship may have overlooked something profound. That is no small ask for those who've built their lives defending a particular version of events. Any deviation, no matter how well supported, can feel like an existential threat. But history is not static. It evolves with every discovery, every excavation, every anomaly that doesn't fit the mold. True science welcomes contradiction. It thrives on debate, re-evaluation, and revision. And when a single figure or system stands in the way of that process, it endangers not just academic freedom, but the pursuit of truth itself. Dr. Schwass remains a towering figure in archaeology, and his legacy is undeniably complex. He has brought global attention to ancient Egypt, but in doing so, may have also obscured some of its deepest truths. By deciding who gets to dig, who gets to speak, and which stories get told, he has shaped our collective understanding, and possibly limited it. As long as the gates remain closed, both physically within the pyramid and institutionally across the field, we may never know what lies beneath the stones. But one thing is certain: truth doesn't fear questions. It fears silence. And until Egypt's past is open to true inquiry, the secrets of the pyramid will remain buried, not by time, but by design. When traditional explanations fall short, and when the physical evidence defies the tools, timelines, and techniques of known history, a natural question emerges. What if the pyramids weren't built entirely by the ancient Egyptians as we know them, but by an older, forgotten civilization, whose legacy has only survived through stone? This is the theory that mainstream archaeology has spent decades resisting. Yet it's one that continues to gain ground, not because of fantasy or fiction, but because of mounting evidence scattered across continents, embedded in the very foundations of the ancient world. The lost civilization theory proposes that long before the rise of pharaohs and hieroglyphs, there existed a society, or perhaps many, that reached an advanced level of engineering, astronomy, and construction. Not futuristic in the sci-fi sense, but capable in ways that still puzzle our modern minds. They left behind monuments, not scrolls or cities, because stone endures. And the most iconic of those monuments may be the Great Pyramid of Giza. Let's begin with the stars. Robert Bauval's Orion correlation theory, first proposed in the 1990s, stunned both scientists and historians alike. He observed that the three main pyramids at Giza align perfectly with the three stars in Orion's belt, but not as they appear today. Instead, the alignment reflects Orion's position in the sky as it was around 10,500 BCE, during the period known as the Younger Dryas, thousands of years before Khufu supposedly built the pyramids. According to Bauval, this wasn't a coincidence. It was intentional, deliberate, and cosmically precise. This theory gained further traction when combined with the work of Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West. Their studies of the Sphinx revealed deep erosion patterns not caused by desert winds or blowing sand, but by prolonged, heavy rainfall. The kind of rainfall the Sahara hasn't seen for over 12,000 years. That puts the possible construction of the Sphinx and possibly the surrounding monuments at the very end of the last Ice Age, again, long before the accepted timeline of Egyptian civilization. These findings don't exist in a vacuum. Across the globe, from the megalithic walls of Peru to the sunken ruins off the coast of Japan, from the temple complex of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey to the underwater formations near Yonaguni, similar anomalies emerge, structures built with extraordinary precision, often using massive stones, and attributed to cultures that, by conventional understanding, should not have been capable of such work. Take Göbekli Tepe, for example. Discovered in the mid-1990s, It is now considered the oldest known temple complex in the world, dated to around 9600 BCE. That's nearly twice as old as Stonehenge, and thousands of years older than the Great Pyramid. The site features massive T-shaped stone pillars, carved with images of animals, abstract symbols, and aligned in complex, intentional patterns. It was built by a society that, according to mainstream archaeology, should have only been capable of basic farming. Yet they constructed monuments requiring logistical coordination, heavy lifting, and cultural sophistication. Author Graham Hancock has become one of the most outspoken voices for the lost civilization theory. In his view, a global cataclysm, likely a massive comet impact or series of events, may have wiped out this advanced culture at the end of the last ice age. The survivors, scattered and diminished, passed on fragments of their knowledge to hunter-gatherer societies, planting the seeds for future civilizations like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. This idea, often dismissed as fringe speculation, gains increasing relevance as more ancient anomalies come to light. Consider the craftsmanship of the granite boxes found at the Serapeum of Saqqara. These massive sarcophagi, weighing up to 70 tons each and carved with stunning geometric precision, were lowered into underground chambers with such tight tolerances that modern engineers question how even today we would achieve such clean, square cuts without industrial machines. Yet no one knows how they were made or why. Back at the Great Pyramid, the signs are everywhere. The smooth, machine-like drill cores, the perfectly flat and square blocks, the precision-aligned chambers, the complete absence of inscriptions, as if the builders never intended to leave behind an identity. If this structure was inherited, not built, by the Egyptians of the Old Kingdom, it would explain much. They may have repurposed it, adapted it, honored it, even tried to replicate it, but the original knowledge may have come from somewhere else. Critics often argue, where are the tools? Where are the records? But those questions assume permanence in human history. Floods, erosion, conflict, time, these erase everything but stone. We may never find the books, the machines, or the blueprints. What we have are the monuments, standing like orphans, disconnected from their true parents by thousands of years and layers of misunderstanding. The lost civilization theory is not about replacing one dogma with another. It's about reopening the investigation. It's about following the data wherever it leads, even if that path doesn't conform to what textbooks have taught for decades. Because when we see the same patterns, enormous megaliths, precision, cuts, astronomical alignments, again and again, across cultures separated by oceans and millennia, we must ask, is this parallel evolution or a shared inheritance? Perhaps the Great Pyramid is not the peak of Egyptian achievement, but the surviving echo of a deeper past, a message in stone from a civilization that saw further, reached higher, and then vanished beneath the sands of time. If that's true, then unlocking the pyramid's mysteries isn't just about rewriting Egyptian history. It's about redefining what humanity is capable of. After everything we've uncovered, the engineering impossibilities, the mysterious sealed chambers, the historical inconsistencies, and the voices silenced by academic gatekeepers, one thing has become undeniable. The official story of who built the Great Pyramid is no longer enough. We are told that this monument, towering above the Giza Plateau, was built in just 20 years, using simple copper tools, wooden sledges, and manpower. But the evidence doesn't support that claim. There are no detailed records from the time of its construction, no inscriptions linking Khufu directly to the structure, no tools, blueprints, or construction plans, no body in the so-called tomb. What we do have are massive blocks cut with surgical precision, boreholes that suggest high-speed rotary tools, and internal alignments that correspond to the stars with mathematical perfection. And what we also have perhaps most tellingly, is silence. Silence from those who are supposed to seek answers, not block them. The pattern is clear. When discoveries threaten the established narrative, they are delayed, defunded, or outright ignored. When new chambers are found, the doors remain closed. When advanced theories emerge, they are labeled as pseudoscience, regardless of their supporting evidence. Why? Because to truly investigate these questions would mean accepting the possibility that history, real human history, is far older, deeper, and more advanced than we've allowed ourselves to believe. If the Great Pyramid wasn't built solely by the Egyptians of 2500 BCE, then who did build it? Was it a lost civilization? A forgotten culture with knowledge that rivaled or surpassed our own? Or were the Egyptians themselves inheritors of this legacy, stewards of a monument that even they didn't fully understand? These aren't idle questions, they are seismic. Because if humanity once reached heights of technological or spiritual sophistication long before recorded history, then the entire arc of our civilization needs to be redrawn. We are not at the peak of an unbroken ascent. We may instead be survivors of a forgotten golden age, struggling to recover knowledge that was lost in cataclysm and time. And yet, despite the growing body of evidence, mainstream institutions still cling to a story written in the 19th century, a story built more on assumption than science. The deeper truth remains locked away behind literal stone doors and metaphorical ones. The gatekeeping of data, the refusal to revisit old sites, the fear of academic embarrassment, or worse, the fear of what we might find if we look too closely. But history does not belong to any one person or institution. It belongs to all of us. And the truth, however disruptive, deserves to be known. If there is evidence of a lost civilization beneath the sands of Egypt, then we owe it to ourselves, to future generations, and to the legacy of human progress to uncover it. So where does that leave us? It leaves us at the edge of something profound, a precipice between the world we think we know and one we've barely begun to rediscover. The Great Pyramid stands as more than a monument. It is a challenge, a riddle in stone, daring us to question, to investigate, and to imagine beyond the limits of conventional thought. Not just how it was built, but why. What was its true purpose? A tomb? A machine? A cosmic marker? Or something we've never even considered? And what of the sealed voids, the hidden doors, the patterns in the stars? These are not side notes. They are central to the mystery. And the longer they remain unexamined, the more we risk burying the truth permanently, not beneath sand, but beneath dogma. Imagine what we might discover if we dared to open every sealed chamber, revisit every dismissed theory, and follow the evidence without fear. We might find carvings in an unknown language, artifacts made with impossible metallurgy, astronomical data encoded in stone that predates recorded civilization. We might, for the first time, meet the true builders of the pyramid, not in person, but in understanding. And if we do, we won't just be rewriting the history of Egypt. We'll be rewriting the history of us. Because the truth is not lost. It's waiting beneath the stones, behind the silence, inside the Great Pyramid. And the only real question left is, will we have the courage to go looking?